Okay, so today's video is just going to be a probably slightly shorter video, just doing my example of project 3. So I'm starting from scratch here. I am in the assignment page, and basically I've already downloaded my files. So I clicked here, clicked download on my files, and I have those on my desktop. I'm starting a new image here, so I need to start a web document at 3000 by 1688. So file new, a web document at 3000 by 1688, 3000, 1688 at 300 dpi. Okay, I'm going to call this Justin Project 4. I'm going to make my background transparent just because that's what I like. I'll give this the sRGB. Okay. So here I am, I've got my artboard. And let's take a look at the images we're using. So I have this stuff on my desktop. These are the images, and so I'm not going to lie, I picked these images for me, for something I wanted to try to do. So I've already got an idea in my head of what I'm going to do with these. I don't think I'm going to use the cabin. I might, but most of the other images I'm going to use. So my first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make a character from League of Legends. And this is the character, Udyr. He is this this kind of monkish kind of guy that can take on the form of different animals. So he does a bear, he does a tiger, he does a turtle, and he does a phoenix. So I'm going to attempt to do him as a bear, I think. So you notice I have a bear in here. I have, see these beads here? I picked some beads. I've got a monk guy. He's going to end up turning into my bear man. And I've got this texture that I may or may not use. So I'm going to start off by just bringing in my my person. Okay, so we'll bring him in here, starting off quite large, which is good. And I'm going to bring in my bear. Okay, and I've got a big bear too. So now we've got this. I don't know. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to make a group for my originals. Okay. Put these in there. Make a group for my guy, which I'll call Udyr. Copy these in. So what I want to try to do is get this bear head on top of the guy. So as an example, he's got a bear skin kind of hat that he wears. So we're going to try to make that happen. I'm not sure how good I'll do at this, but I'm just going to jump in and see what I can do with it. I'll change my plan if it doesn't work. Thing is, he's like, the bear is kind of facing the totally wrong way. Isn't he? His head is not facing the right way for my guy. There's no way I'm going to make that head work for the guy have? So this might be a sticking point for my idea. And see, I'm just like quickly like going over the idea. It doesn't have to be something set in stone. So like I'm at a crossroads at this point. If I want to try to complete my idea, then I either try to find an image of a guy that seems to fit this, or I go with a different idea, which is also a possibility. So let me look back at I picked these based on a loose guideline of that, but I don't need to stick to that idea. Let's see my other images here. Okay, so I think I've got an idea. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this guy on top of the cabin, floating in this landscape. I'm gonna make him be like a tiny guy. So it almost reminds me of the Indian in the cupboard. If you've ever read that children's novel, it's gonna be a very small guy floating in the water. There's gonna be like this curious bear coming to see what's going on with him, and then I'll see what else. I'll see what else after that point. So let me bring in my landscape image, and I'm also going to be using the cabin image apparently. So let's bring the cabin in. Let's bring the landscape in. Put copies of the originals in here. And so I'm going to start off with getting my cabin floating in the water here. Make a duplicate of them and bring them in. Okay, so turn off my originals. My cabin's going to be on top. Basically, I need to cut out my cabin. I think I'll do that with the pen tool. Should be fairly quick. Maybe. In fact, I could probably just use the polygon lasso tool here. Since there's no real curves, I don't really need to use the pen tool because all I'm making is straight lines. And the polygon lasso tool does that. Go around and isolate the cabin. There are a few small curves, wood bows, but nothing that this can't handle, it seems. If you noticed, I've got this other piece, this piece that comes off the side of the cabin and like goes down to the ground. I'm not going to include that. I just do? I accidentally clicked over there. It's okay. Okay, so it just closed the path on me. That's fine. So I'm going to click on this one, which is adding to this selection. So I've already got a partial selection because I accidentally closed the path. But I can just click this and add to that selection. Start back where I left off. Excuse me for one moment. I am going to blow my nose. Okay. Here I am back in here, and I accidentally messed up my selection again, but that's okay. I'm still in the add to selection, so I can just continue adding. Using this tool to select the outside edge of my cabin. I keep misclicking somehow while doing this. That's fine. I'm just going to make a mask, so I can edit that mask anytime. It's part of what's great about masks. I have no idea how I keep messing these clicks up. What should be happening is when I hold the shift key, it switches to a hand in order to pull the canvas around, but somehow I keep accidentally clicking. Okay, so now I'm just clicking to overlap my other selection. I need to find, where's the end of this selection, right there. Okay, so now if I go into quick mask mode, it shows what will be and won't be selected. And at this point I can take a brush and brush out this extra thing I have going on here. I just press Q to get into quick mask mode. Okay, and then I think where these rocks are, I don't need rocks because this is going to be floating on water, so get rid of a few of these elements down here. Okay, and then there's some parts that were deselected that should be selected, so I'll grab those over here, and vice versa now that I look closely. I want those pieces, but then these should be more. Okay. And then as I look, there are some areas where it looks like it's, I don't know if that's the background there or not. I actually think it is. So there's a few places that should be masked out along here, because this is the actual seeing through to the background. It's behind the cabin. That's true over here too. Okay, and then we have a window on the inside. So I'm going to get out of quick mask mode. In this window, I can just go back in with my polygon selection tool, and I'm going to subtract from the selection. Just click here to subtract that window from the selection. Okay. maybe we do want part of this roof that's coming down. So I'm just going to add that back into the selection. I'm not going to get the roof that's going all the way to the ground, but just so that it looks like it at least extends down to kind of where a normal roof would along the edge. So this will probably come like that. And I also need this stuff up here. The more I do with this now, the less I have to do with it later to get it to look right. So I'm just being a little bit picky at the beginning in order to keep it looking realistic later. Okay, I've got my cabin. So now that I have that selection made, I can just mask out the background and voila! Got my cabin almost set in my lake. So let's name this cabin. We'll call this woods. Now there's a couple things to fix up on my cabin, namely, like, so this thing that was in the original image I probably want out, so I'm going to use my clone stamp tool. Oh, clone stamp tool. So this is a smart object. I had to rasterize it to do this tool, which is fine. I guess the way I placed the image in kept it as a smart object. So then Okay, so that's removed. Now I need to place my cabin. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. I may not want to get rid of that, and then I'm just going to apply the layer mask here, which will just delete the background contents, and then I can move this thing freely around. Oops. So again, I've got a little guy, a little monk, and his cabin is floating. Okay, so the cabin maybe is floating kind of there. Maybe it's over here a little bit more. Okay, and now I need to make a reflection of it. So I'm going to duplicate it and basically just, whoops, I didn't duplicate it. Duplicate it and basically, right, duplicate it. Basically pull it down like this. It should be kind of, what should be happening is it should be reflecting downwards from, perfectly vertical almost from where it's at. Okay, so we've got that there, and then what I need to do is kind of be able to move this to reflect downward. This side needs to, no, that's not going to work. Let's see. I need to edit, transform, and warp. What I should be able to do then is kind of pull these corners up to be actually reflected. It's imperfect, but I think it'll get it close enough. Okay, then I actually put this underneath, and okay. And there's a little bit of a blur in there because it's the water, and also it's not going to be fully visible. So I'm going to reduce the opacity a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to blur. I'm using the trees as a guide for how this is going to kind of look. So I'm just looking at how blurry those are. About 1 pixel looks to do it. Okay, and then make a group. This is cabin and reflection. Okay, and then I need to do an adjustment layer, probably for brightness and contrast. We'll see what we do here, because this needs to be quite a bit darker. Needs to be on my cabin. This needs to kind of match the lighting that's in the scene, right? So the lighting is there, maybe it's a bit darker like that, and then maybe I need a little bit of an adjustment for the reflection to be even darker. Save. somehow moved my image, but okay, so with that, I've got my cabin placed in my scene. So my next step, not today, in my next video though, I will probably place my man. What I think I'm going to do is I'll have the bear either here or over here, and I'm going to have the man um, standing on top of the cabin. In fact, I might even use the beads like stacked as if he's like standing on a stack of beads, almost like a totem, and like have him balanced on those. And then the bear is going to find this little man to be a curiosity, and he's just going to be standing kind of looking, maybe walking down and trying to look at what he is, or maybe he's even standing in the water and kind of sniffing him or something. We'll see. Oops, I keep accidentally moving my stuff here. But I'll get to that. But I think the cabin looks fairly realistic. I think it's working in there. So maybe just stretching the reflection a little bit. Maybe it's stretched a little bit along the water. All right. Okay. I'm going to save it. Just a quick little starting piece for me to get my cabin in there, and I'll get my guy and my bear in probably on the next one. All right.